morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, Lightroomers. Welcome to Pro Photo Tips. My name is Josh Cripps, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Joshua Cripps Photography. Now, today I'm going to show you a technique where you can make a local adjustment preset. Now, why the heck would you want to do that? Well, if you find yourself making the same local adjustments over and over and over and over again, this is just an easy time-saving method to have those adjustments set up as presets so you can access them quickly and consistently in your workflow. So let me give you an example of why you might want to do this and how it works. So back in the day, a few years ago, when I shot with cameras that didn't have the dynamic range of today's cameras, I used split or graduated neutral density filters all the time to control the highlights in my skies and get a more balanced exposure with my foreground. Now, the camera I'm shooting with today doesn't have that same problem because it's got this really incredible dynamic range. As you can see here, I've captured the dynamic range of this entire scene from the shadows to my highlights without blowing anything out or without clipping anything. But I actually still like that aesthetic look of when the sky is equally balanced in its exposure with the foreground. It gives the scene a very painterly feel. So in order to achieve that effect, I'm going to do that with a couple of local adjustments. In this case, I'm going to use a graduated filter adjustment. So to bring that up, you can either hit the M key on your keyboard, as in me like grad filters, or go ahead and just click the grad filter button right up here. So what you want to do to dial in a preset is simply put the adjustment that you find yourself using a lot. Now, I would often use a 2 or a 3 stop soft graduated neutral density filter that would bring my sky down closer to my foreground. So I'm going to actually approach this in a couple of adjustments just so you can see how the process works a couple of times over. So the first thing I do, I can actually just drag this adjustment from the sky down to the foreground. Now, I haven't dialed anything in yet, so nothing's happening. But if you see, if I go ahead and start dragging the sliders around, now my adjustment's popping up. So if I drag my exposure down a little bit, maybe around, I don't know, 3/4 of a stop, and I drag the highlights down as well just to make sure that the sky stays nice and dark and juicy and punchy. Now, this is an effect that I can use on any photo where I've got a bright sky. So I can save this as a preset simply by going up here to where it says Effect, Custom. If I click on that, it brings up this huge menu. You can see Lightroom already has a ton of presets already available, so go ahead and play with those to see what they do, but you can create your own. For example, save current settings as new preset. So if I click on that, it gives me a chance to save it something like, we'll call it Sky Darken. So now that I've got my Sky Darken preset, I'm actually going to create another preset. So if I hold down the Alt or Option key, you can see that effect changes to reset. I can click that, it'll zoom it all out, or clear it all out. And now I'm going to create another preset for the ground. So I'm going to drag from the ground up towards the sky. And in this case, I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. And I'm going to lift the shadows a little bit. And now this will just give me a nice, even exposure across the board. So again, I can go up here to Custom, click on that, save current settings as new preset. This one we're going to call Ground Lighten. Okay, so now I've got these two presets dialed in. Now, how the heck do they work? Well, let me go back in my history here to before when I added any of those graduated filters. So now if I want to go ahead and make those same adjustments, all I have to do is bring up my graduated filter again. So it's brought up my graduated filter panel here. So all I have to do in order to bring these effects into play, rather than dialing in those, try to like match exactly the same numbers I used before, I can go up here and just click on this. I'll scroll down to my ground lighten. Now I've got my ground lighten preset selected. So I just click and drag like that. Cool. Then if I hit new, I can go ahead and grab my Sky Darken preset and just drag that one down like that. Perfect. So now in a matter of a couple of clicks, I've really quickly and easily dialed in those adjustments that I wanted to see in the image. And the cool thing about those presets is because they are saved within Lightroom, I can now bring those into any other image that I want. For example, let me go find another image. Okay, so here's another example. This one's from Yosemite National Park, and I really want to brighten this foreground to bring out those flowers with respect to the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my graduated adjustment here again, and you can see I've already got my Sky Darken preset selected, so I can just click and drag there on that one. Now if I hit new, I can go down here and grab my Ground Lighten preset, and lighten it up, something like that. And now I've got a much more even exposure across the board. As I brighten it up here and make some other quick adjustments, you can see how it gives that a much more nice kind of a painterly look across the board, as opposed to before we added any of those grad filters. You can see the discrepancy between the sky exposure and the ground exposure. So it's just really, really quick way to make these consistent adjustments that I know I'm going to be making on images over and over and over again. And what's the cool thing about these presets is they don't just live within the tool that you selected. For example, the graduated filter tool. If I bring up the radial filter, you can see I've still got my same presets available, my ground lighten, my sky darken, and I can do that within the adjustment brush as well. So another example would be I have a lens that actually has a very slight greenish tint in the corners of the lens. And so if I wanted a preset to fix that every time, what I could do is something like this. Go to my radial filter and zero everything out. And just to counteract that green tint, I could add a little bit of magenta and then drag from the center to the outside. So there's obviously too much magenta, but I'm just doing this to kind of illustrate how you can do this. So I've created this adjustment, and if I save this one now, save current presettings as preset, I'm going to save that as lens color correction. Now every time I edit a photo that I've shot with that lens that has that slight green color tint on the edges, I can just bring up my lens color correction preset, draw out with my radial filter, and boom, that's instantly gone. So I don't have to dial in a new one every single time. I've got a set amount that I know is correct for that lens. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Really, really simple technique, but it can save you a little bit of time in editing, especially if you're doing the same edits over and over and over again. It's nice to have that consistency. So I hope this finds its way into your workflow. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel. You can also join our newsletter to receive all kinds of Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography tips. Don't forget to check out some of our other post-processing videos. And if you'd like to learn even more about Lightroom, you can check out an in-depth Lightroom tutorial here. Until next time, have fun and happy shooting.